welcome back everyone to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. This is Kevin Horde here, and with me is...
Lorenzo Fawn. Hello, everybody.
Lorenzo, how's it going?
Good. Yourself, yeah?
Doing well.
Yeah, we're moving right along here, yeah.
We are here today to discuss episode 1, season 1, episode 2, titled Rising Malevolence. Original air date was October 3rd of 2008. So this actually aired the same date as Ambush, last week's episode. Right? That's last week's episode? Ambush?
Yes, I believe we're coming straight off of Ambush, yeah.
The production code on this is actually 107 as opposed to 102, which is actually the release. And one thing of note is I watched the director's cut of this, which was on the DVD. So it was 24 minutes, 19 seconds. Usually these episodes are around 22 minutes each. Do you know which version you watched, Lorenzo?
You know what? I did not pay attention to the length. I think it was the longer one, though. I remember it being slightly longer.
Right. Were you watching on...
Netflix.
So, yeah, I actually synced these two up. I synced my DVD up and I synced Netflix up, and actually got a pretty fluid playing on two screens, getting two audio feeds coming in.
Yeah. And
let it play for close to a minute before I realized that the overall length was the same. So I think that what is on Netflix is the director's cut.
Yeah, the longer version. That's good. Yeah, because I mean, in television terms, like 2 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're talking about something the length that's 21 minutes, 2 minutes is quite a lot of extra footage.
Right.
And especially when we're talking about animation, that's a lot of extra rendering and stuff that has to happen for all of that.
Yeah. So I looked briefly into trying to find, what the original length was, or if it just aired as a director's cut, and if so, then I wouldn't think that it would be considered a director's cut. But I haven't found anything definitive that is any different.
So this is just the version we have.
Yeah, this is just what we got. I couldn't find anything that said
so we don't even know what those 2 extra minutes might be. Yeah.
Correct. Like you can look on YouTube and find shot by shot, side by side comparisons of the original releases of the original trilogy and the remastered stuff and everything else.
Yeah.
Because people have taken the time to do that. I'm guessing that nobody cares.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about other stuff.
Right.
We talk a lot, so.
And that's all right.
So we just want to bring up that we kind of discovered that there are certain...
Yeah, apparently there
episodes.
are director's cut versions of some of these episodes. So when we come across them, we'll just let you know, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. All right, so what's going on in this one?
So the fortune cookie today is as follows. Belief is not a matter of choice, but a matter of conviction.
Yeah.
Or belief is not a matter of choice, but of conviction.
Yes.
However you want to say that. I'm ad-libbing, apparently.
Just make your own fortune cookie. It's fine.
Right.
Huh?
I'll make my own fortune cookie. That's fine. I actually made... Side note, tangent number 1 already. I actually made fortune cookies one time from scratch.
How was that?
It's a pain in the butt because you have to
like mush up some stuff, right? It's
right. I mean, it's similar to baking any type of cookie or bread or dough or anything, but you take them out of the oven, and when they're still warm, when they're still hot, you have to scrape them off the parchment and flip them and make sure you don't do any damage to these cookies and then stuff them with whatever the fortune is and fold them
Yeah, nah. I'll let the robots do that. That is...
So
that's a lot of work. No.
Yeah, and we did a couple trial runs, so it was a couple days worth of baking and folding fortune cookies.
I would have head straight to the nearest Chinatown and bought a bag of fortune cookies at that point.
Yeah, so I went to culinary school at one point in time, way back in the day, and you don't do like a thesis or anything like that, right? You just have one class that all the people in your class like put on a meal, you organize, design dining room, order product, blah blah blah. So everybody rotates in these stations like each week, because there's only one person has their meal on whatever the date is. So everybody's got their one night where they're in charge.
Yeah.
As kind of your final culmination of everything. And so one of the people in my class wanted fortune cookies, so the fortunes that were inside were customized, so we couldn't just go and buy fortune cookies, we had to make them.
Okay.
So
that makes sense. That's also a very random, bizarre task to take on.
Yeah.
Like, of all food items, that's creative and different,
Yeah, I don't remember, because it's not as though there was... it wasn't like there was a dinner theme that went along with fortune cookies,
Yeah. This person was just like, fortune cookies. That's what I'm going to do to stand out.
Right.
Yeah.
For his thank you / dessert. I don't remember. That was a long time ago.
All right. So on to this episode.
Yeah, anyway.
We're going to get the tangents out early in this one, maybe.
We're going to try.
Unlike last week where I ended ranting about Disneyland. Was that last week or the week before? I don't even remember.
I believe
2
that
weeks.
was last week.
Yeah. Anyways, moving back on. So we have
moving
Plo
forward.
Koon.
Getting back to what's going on. Plo Koon.
Plo Koon has been sent to hunt a ship. Yeah.
Yes. So there is this something's going on with the Separatist, and it's thought that there's like this secret weapon that is just really whooping ass. Because it's one of those deals where there will be a fleet or a platoon or whatever you want to call it, group of ships.
Yeah.
The
like a squadron.
Yep, the clones are out there, and all of a sudden they'll just everybody will be wiped out, everything's destroyed, and
no survivors.
And it's kind of a mystery of what is happening to said troops and platoons and whatnot. So I think what the newsreel says is clones under siege. There's basically they think there's like a secret weapon, defeating everybody. I've got a note that says meeting with the Jedi bosses in Sheev. So I think what we see is, the big four, which are Obi-Wan, Mace, Yoda. I don't know who the
Are
other
you
one
including
is.
Palpatine in that, or
Maybe.
Yeah, because usually if there's a hollow meeting of the Jedi Council, it would be those three Jedi that you mentioned, and then Palpatine is involved, and then Anakin usually just kind of butts his way in somehow. Is usually what's happening.
Correct.
But yeah, it's Mace, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. Usually, I've noticed thus far seem to be the lead of the council.
Yeah, they're like the big three.
Yeah.
So the fourth would be Palpatine.
Yeah.
Yep. So Plo Koon goes looking for whatever the secret weapon is. Question. I don't remember, like, does he have a report of there's something in the area, or does he go to a like destroyed battle site? I'm getting confused between this episode and maybe other episodes, so I just want to be clear, because I know that along the way he is attacked, right?
Yeah.
But is he just out flying around, or is it like we think that we have some intel that said potential secret weapon is in this area, so go there and check it out? I think that's what's going on.
Something like that. I think he's kind of just doing double duty. Like, he's already kind of out there in a battle of some sort, but they kind of sent him towards the direction of the last known system wherever they got wiped out or whatever.
Okay.
Hoping that the secret weapon would be nearby.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So
he's got 3 good guy Star Destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
And they pull up on a pretty big ass ship, which we find out is called the Malevolence. Hence the title of this episode, Rising Malevolence. Right?
Yes.
So what kind of info do you have about Malevolence?
I didn't write down any specific notes on that.
Okay.
Yeah, not until any note I took was reactionary towards what it does,
Okay.
and what the weapon is.
Okay.
But if you have other things besides what the weapon does,
I do, but we can kind of include that all together. My first note actually is that when you go looking into the backstory of Malevolence, Wikipedia says that its first appearance is actually an ambush. So that would be last week's episode. And from what I gather, it's in the newsreel at the beginning, which pisses me off because that's telling me that in the newsreel there are things that will be seen in future episodes. So even though the voiceover is the previously on, the clips, the montage is actually fair game for probably anything that happened in production up to this point. So even though this is season 1, episode 2, the production code is 17.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking anything that was in production up to 107 is able to be included in the newsreel montage at the beginning, which ticks me off because during Ambush, we've got Yoda going to the moon, Ragosa. Why do you got to show a clip of something that's happening in the future?
Yeah. I think, because the newsreel is providing context, right? Like, I never saw the newsreel as a complete previously on. Sometimes it fills that role.
Right.
If we get episodes that are linked, right? But with something like Ambush, because that essentially is the series pilot.
Right.
Right. It's just providing context for the whole thing. So it's like, hey, this is going on. Here's a quick shot of it. The Malevolence is there because it's part of this war concurrently, right? Not what happened previously. It's just, hey, this is all the random shit that's going on in the Clone Wars, and that's what this has to do with Yoda going to Ragosa.
So you're thinking that potentially the Malevolence was already doing its thing when Yoda is going to Ragosa, or am I just overthinking this? And I'm trying to headcanon all this stuff in together, because if we're supposed to be introduced to this ship in this episode, and then you go and you look at the appearances in whatever episodes, blah blah, and it straight up tells you that it was in a story that we've already seen,
Well, again, by bringing up that it's in the newsreel, again, it's like if you're watching the news, it's not like you're getting the complete beginning and end per se.
Right.
We're trying our best by watching in chronological order.
To try to piece this thing together as if it was one giant long-ass story.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, there's potentially going to be things that just overlap, right?
Right.
It's like
Saw 3 and Saw 4 happen at the same time.
I stopped by Saw 2, so
man, you should watch them. They're pretty good.
I didn't like the first two, so once the lady got thrown in the needle pit, I was like, no, this is dumb. I'm out of here. Like, I'm a more suspense tension kind of guy rather than the like
visceral horror porn. I gotcha.
Torture porn, yeah. Like, I'm a huge horror fan, and Saw was not my bag.
Okay, fair enough.
I need tension, not just like action. So,
spoiler warning for anybody out there listening to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For that hasn't seen the Saw series, but the third movie and the fourth movie happen concurrently, and it's the way that it is revealed at the end of the fourth movie is that basically some things are happening in one room while other things are happening in another room. So that's
kind of brilliant. Yeah,
it is pretty cool. So the characters that you see in the fourth movie, I don't remember if there's character overlap there, but the whole time you think that they're responding to what happened in the third movie, but they're not because it's happening
at the same
simultaneously.
Time. Well, because like even think about it this way, it's like you watch like Thor 1, Thor 2, Thor 3 as its own like unit,
right?
But at the same time, like Black Panther's off doing his thing, right?
Right.
And freaking Iron Man's off doing his thing, right?
Right.
Like we meet into these stories with them individually, but it doesn't mean that like, hey, well, Civil War is happening, this thing's happening with Thor, and that's why Thor didn't show up in Civil War, sort of thing, right?
Right.
So that's kind of how I'm treating these newsreels. It's because the war is so expansive, it's like, I don't know. You have to remember that, like, in World War II, like, we're in Europe, but also Japan is kind of fucking shit up, like.
No, that happened at different times. Like, only one battle can happen at a time. And the other people, they just have to wait. You gotta wait your turn.
Wait your turn.
It's like
pull
a game
number from the tab.
Right. It's like a game of kickball. There's no war on two fronts. That doesn't happen. It gets too confusing, and everybody has to give up.
Yeah, no. So it's not like so much a bar brawl as like a friendly line of people waiting.
There's a line, right? Like, I fight you, then I fight the next guy, then I fight the next guy.
Yeah, just two people fighting at a time, not a full brawl here. Like,
and if this is Mortal Kombat, that's called a tournament.
Yes, exactly. So.
Anyways, back to Malevolence.
So
this thing is 4,800 meters long.
Yes.
Which
that's what we were talking about. I forgot.
1,600 meters is a mile, so that's like 3 miles long.
Oh, good God. Yeah.
Its top speed in atmosphere is 1,050 kilometers per hour. It has a crew of 900. It's got 500 turbo lasers. It's got 2-point defense laser cannons. No, it has 5 of those. 5-point defense laser cannons, which I guess are just big ass cannons. I don't know the difference.
Bigger than the
cannon
general
and a turbo
lasers.
Laser.
Yeah.
It's powered by 16 engines, and its most defining feature is that it's got 2 mega ion cannons, one on each side. They are located just kind of right in the center, midway down the ship, one on either side, pointing out.
Yeah.
Right. So now that we know what it looks like, now we know what it does, how long it is, now that we've covered the Saw movies,
a little bit of World War II.
A little bit of World War II, Mortal Kombat, bar brawls.
So the secret weapon is...
The secret weapon is apparently these ion cannons.
Yeah.
And we find that out by kind of dodging around through some stuff. Plo Koon sees this thing, and they immediately start shooting at each other, right? We do have some of the normal cut intermix back and forth between good guys, bad guys. On the bridge, back to the good guy Star Destroyers. On the Malevolence is actually Dooku and Grievous. And of course, they jam transmissions.
Yeah.
So Plo Koon
right after Plo sends a message out to Anakin too.
Yes.
Yeah. So Plo gets a message.
Is he calling for help, or is he like, "Hey, I found it," or? Yeah,
some sort of ping gets sent out. Yeah, some sort of ping gets sent out, and then I think I economized my notes. I think the Jedi Council gets it, right? And then they kind of pass the word on. They're like, "Oh, Anakin's near there,"
Yeah. So the notes I have on that is like, Plo decides to tell his mates where he is at before he attacks. So he sees the ship.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, we need to attack this ship.
Yeah.
But anybody that tries to attack said ship never gets heard from again. Yeah. So his plan is to call and say, hey, I'm here. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm going to do. Just to let you know, this is what the ship looks like, blah, blah, whatever. So he gets a hold of Anakin and Ahsoka, and there's a little bit of a revelation here that Ahsoka and Plo Koon already know each other. Did you catch that? So
is that here or is that later?
That's here.
Oh.
So, because they address each other, right.
She goes more into it much later.
But
yeah, she gets explicit about it later. Yeah.
Right. The video conference call starts, and she's like, Kotaya, right? Is what she says.
That is
Kotoya. Kotoya, Plo, and he's like, Kotoya, little Soka.
That's right. Yeah.
So this is where we're introduced to evidence, shall we say, that they know each other from other than just this conversation.
Yeah. So
I guess we'll save the rest for later, because you said she does get into it later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Plo's like, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is where we're going, and Anakin says, oh, well, I gotta ask permission because I'm supposed to just be sitting here not doing anything. So
yeah.
Which doesn't make sense. Like, Anakin goes back and forth. Like, sometimes he's hanging up on you because you're trying to tell him not to do something he's not supposed to be doing, and sometimes
he's already 5 steps into doing that thing. Like,
right. And then sometimes, like in this case, Plo Koon's like, yo, help me out. And he's like, I don't know. Like,
he's like, I'm on strike 2, guys. Like,
let me call the big 3.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you.
I just got out of timeout. Like, I just got out of timeout. So
try not to die before I get there.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
At this point, the transmission breaks up, and that's the end of that conversation. So,
and then Grievous and Dooku show off the weapon essentially once they kind of get into battle. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's this ion cannon that shoots out sideways.
Correct. So it shoots out the side of the ship.
Yeah.
So
in a very visible ion shield thing.
It comes out in like this round lightning
plate,
like a
thing.
Circular lightning burst that expands in size as it gets further away from the ship.
Yes.
So if it starts at 20 stories tall, by the time it's a half a mile away, it's 40 stories tall or whatever.
Yeah.
So I guess eventually this energy would just kind of dissipate as it expanded outward. And
that was kind of my question too, because it shows it still as like a very visible pink
thing going off
purple,
into the distance.
Yeah, orby thingy
right
happening.
Right.
So that was my question too. Like, does the energy eventually fizzle out?
I would imagine so. I think it's
like,
think
is
it's
there some
similar...
poor galaxy down the line just like getting zapped?
That's the question with like all blaster fire and everything in the Star Wars universe in space.
Yeah, is it just traveling infinitely until
until it smashes into something?
Yeah,
you know.
That is a good question.
So I think that as it expands outward, I would imagine that the energy is becoming less concentrated. Yeah. So eventually it's going to like fizzle out.
Yeah, like it'll create a minor shock, but not like a ship-wide failure.
Yes. So this is a good time to talk about what an ion cannon is. Mm-hmm. Do you want to cover that? You want me to cover that? What do you know about ion cannons?
I got nothing.
Okay, so we have seen them in Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
And in this episode. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, in Empire, the rebel forces have these giant snowball-looking things with, like, rifles sticking out of them that they shoot up off the planet and hit a Star Destroyer.
Yeah.
And then it gets, like, little blue lightning that kind of fizzles around it. And it incapacitates the Star Destroyer. Right. Yeah. This is an ion cannon. I think in the EU, they were pretty prevalent, but as far as canon goes, according to Wikipedia, like these are the 2 times that you see ion cannons in the Star Wars universe, is the Malevolence and later on Hoth. That's it. So it's essentially, instead of a laser bolt that is causing physical damage, this is doing, it's like
electrical damage, essentially. Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like an electrical overload. So
but it also affects mechanical things. It seems like.
Okay.
Because the entire ship, like the various little ships, shut down completely.
Right. They just stop. Like. It's like you unplugged them. It's like you unplugged your vacuum.
Yeah.
It doesn't work anymore. It doesn't do anything. You can push it around, but it's not going to vacuum. It's not going to suck. It's not, the ships physically are good. They're still there. But none of their blasters work. None of their turbo lasers. None of their shields go down. Communications are out. It seems like lighting and life support is about the only thing that remains on.
Yeah.
So it is essentially just a way to shut down your enemy in all forms except for physical existence. Right. Which seems pretty handy. So that's what happens is Plo's 3 ships all get hit with this singular burst of ionness coming from the super ion cannons.
Which I was also curious about the aiming system of this ship, because like you said, it's a 3-mile long ship.
Right, and this is located right in the middle.
Yeah. So does the entire ship have to really aim carefully, right? Because again, it's that disket sort of thing that's.
It depends. It depends on how close the target is, I think.
Yeah. Is it just aiming in a general direction, and it's like, oh yeah, there's a bunch of stuff over there. We'll get those.
So I think that there's some screwy stuff going on with scale.
Yeah.
In this episode, so like we said, the Malevolence is 4,800 meters. 3 miles long, right? Later in this episode, well, pretty well coming up. So just to get through some plot stuff.
Yeah.
Anakin and Ahsoka actually make the call to the big three, and they're talking. I guess this is actually the big four: Yoda, Sheev, Obi, and Mace. And they're, like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, what do you want us to do? And it's actually an odd conversation because they leave from talking to Plo in one room and walk through a door, and this holo conference is already going on.
Yeah.
Which was odd. And so the big four are just kind of chit-chatting. And
they're just kind of there. Connections
they come in,
made.
and Anakin tells Ahsoka basically, like, be a 1940s woman and, like, just shut up and don't say anything and let me talk because I'm the dude.
Yeah, because I'm the boss, you're the Padawan. Like,
right.
I'm wiser than you, even though...
Right. I'm smarter, but I don't know.
Either way, he just tells her to shut the hell up.
He's basically just being a dick.
Yeah.
Like, shut up and let me handle it. Not that she was trying to be outspoken or anything anyway. She's just like following him into the room, and he's like, oh, by the way, don't open your fucking mouth.
Yeah.
Be a good little Padawan and keep your mouth shut.
Just shut the
So
hell
he
up.
talks to them, and they decide, like, okay, Anakin, you're going to go and fucking investigate this. Like, and then doesn't...
But Mace has, like, some hesitation. Like, Mace doesn't want to send more ships to investigate or something like that.
Right, because anything that
they don't want to lose more ships essentially.
Right. Mace's opinion is kind of like Plo's lost. Plo's lost.
We got to do it. Like, there's other battles going on to worry about.
Right. Ace is in their places, and this isn't where they need to be.
Yeah. So then right after that is when Ahsoka doesn't follow Anakin's orders, speaks out of turn, I guess.
Right, and she's arguing for...
sending a search party.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they're like,
she's
no.
Like, we need to go.
And then, so what happens is that Anakin needs to, like, relocate his whole platoon to somewhere else. He's like, they're, like, clearing out the area, right?
Yeah.
Because supposedly Anakin was, like, quote-unquote close by, whatever the fuck that means, because is that a planet away? Is it a system away? Is it multi-systems away? Like,
what I got was, like, he's nearby at Bith, wherever that is.
Okay. Right.
So...
in relationship to wherever the Malevolence is. Right. So they get their orders to clear out and head someplace else, and Ahsoka is pretty sad, and then we cut back to Plo getting shot by this circle lightning ion cannon.
Yeah.
And then the Malevolence just starts to fucking decimate these Republic cruisers, which... Republic cruisers are like a mile long, I think is what they are. And these things look just tiny compared to the Malevolence. The Malevolence, it would be like my dog barking at a semi-truck.
Yeah.
And the semi-truck, like, blasting the hell out of my dog.
Yeah.
Like, that's the size comparison, which it shouldn't be, because they should be about a quarter the length, but all three of these things would be more than half the size of the Malevolence.
Yeah.
But even all three of these things combined look like they're about the size of the ion cannon itself.
Yeah. I noticed that too. And then the other thing that was weird to me is that they have this giant ion cannon, but then they still resort to, like, the normal laser cannons to the
500 turbo lasers.
Yeah, to just
I think that's because the ion cannon just incapacitates them, so then they're just dead in the water.
But they don't have, like, a bigger sort of, like, the laser.
Right, they got those They got 2 mega ion cannons. They have 5 point defense laser cannons, and they have 500 turbo lasers. So whatever a point defense laser cannon is, but there definitely is just this constant barrage of laser fire, and they're just blowing the shit out of all these fucking.
I just thought it was odd. I just thought it was odd that there wasn't like they were taking their sweet time, like slowly breaking these things apart with all that artillery.
Right.
But it was weird to me, like with that ion cannon, that they didn't just have like another bigger laser to go along with it. You know, like obviously we're not at like Death Star tech yet.
Right. So,
but you know what I mean?
Like one side should be a giant ion cannon, and the other side should be like a giant fucking turbo laser.
Something like that. Yeah, something that can destroy more thoroughly than having to point 500 lasers at a thing.
That would totally make sense. I was thinking that maybe it would take too long to like turn the ship around, you know, doing like a 3-point turn in space. But there's no up-down orientation, so they could literally like shoot and roll.
Roll, yeah.
And then shoot again. Done.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Or they could just have like the whole center of the ship like rotate, so it like shoots one thing and then it just like rotates over and then
the
like
middle.
Boom, done.
Yeah. So it just was visually weird to me that they're like, oh, we have this big weapon, or the Jedi are like, oh, we have to be worried about this big weapon, and like the weapon is impressive. Yeah, it shuts down all the ships. That's awesome.
Right.
But then it turns back into like oh, that's right, they're not destroyed. What are we doing? Oh, we stopped to shoot at it. Okay. And like 20 minutes later, they're still like, oh, they're not destroyed yet. Okay, keep going.
Yep. You know, keep blowing them up. Keep blowing them up.
Keep shooting, I guess.
And then we're going to have another step in this defeat process because de facto, what do? You jump in an escape pod and you jettison all the fucking escape pods. So that's what Plo has done. 2 of the ships seem to be not only incapacitated but have been broken apart by turbo laser fire. Yeah. And Plo and some clones hop into an escape pod and fire out, and so they're stuck in space. But I don't know how an escape pod would work if like everything else doesn't fucking work on the ship.
Yeah.
So an ion cannon is selective in its ability to incapacitate some things and not others. So life support systems work.
Is it like a chemical thing where like once they like pull the lever, there's just like maybe like a chemical that goes off? It's not reliant on whatever, because like it's all you're trying to do is jettison away from the ship, right?
Right.
It's like you don't like you're getting off the Titanic. You don't have the giant propeller. You're rowing on your own at that point. You know?
So there's like a backup like chemical propulsion system where it just like makes a chemical explosion to
just pop you out.
Right, to start your momentum, and then your momentum just carries you wherever you're going.
Yeah. Or it's like the new ships that have like the fancy lifeboats that are like fully enclosed, and what it is like once everybody's like seated in there, like it just slides out and plops into the ocean.
Right.
That sort of thing.
I saw that on that movie with Tom Hanks where he's a captain.
Captain Phillips.
Yep. That was good.
That's the one where he just plop, and it just goes into the water. Yep.
I liked that one. That was good.
So yeah, maybe it's something like that, because that was the other thing. But then because right afterwards they show that the escape pod is also dead. Yeah.
Yes.
Like all the systems on the escape pod are also dead. It just was able to disconnect,
remove itself from the ship.
Yeah.
Okay.
But once they got into the open space, open sea of space, that is, with all the other debris and stuff, they're just kind of stuck there. They're dead in the water, as you would say.
Correct. Yeah, so I think my note at this point is blasty blast, fire all cannons. Dooku essentially says kill everything. We've got a couple of cutting back and forth between Anakin and Plo and Yularen, because Yularen shows up in this episode.
Yeah.
He's with Anakin and Ahsoka, right?
Yes.
Like they're on the same ship together.
They're on the same ship.
And so Anakin's like, all right, Yularen, like, go do this shit, and we're going to go do this shit. And they take off.
Yeah. Because for a second, Yularen, or Ahsoka or Yularen are like, well, like, that's sort of where we need to be, but aren't we supposed to be over here? And then Anakin is like, yeah, no, we're still there. Don't worry. And then that's when he flies off. Like,
yeah. He says, he says, well, yeah, that's where we're, he doesn't say that's where we are. He says that's where we're going.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're left with Plo and his clones, and there's there's like 2 or 3 or 4 escape pods, right? Does that sound right?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that.
There's more than one, yeah.
They're just in this giant debris field because
the
there's
dead
been
destroyers,
right?
Yeah,
destroyers that have been blowed up, blasted to nothing. General Grievous sends out these like reconnaissance ships. I don't remember what he calls them.
I don't know what they called them, but they sent out something. Yeah.
And this is a ship that looks like it was specifically designed to just crush escape pods.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of got the central thing on it, and then like these 4 arms. Like if you took a table and just laid it down and like beefed up like the actual table part, and the legs of the space table
pointed forward. Yeah.
Are pointed forward, and they can just fly up to an escape pod and like grab onto it.
Mm-hmm.
And then what these things will do is either like these droids will fly out and just fly across and like either cut the escape pod open, or they also have like these crushing mandibles on it.
And just regular battle droids too, which I found interesting.
Yeah.
Just visually speaking, that was not what I expected, because those battle droids that then still had to have like packs on to be able to
they do have
navigate open space.
They're not like jetpacks because they don't have like fire that comes out of them.
Yeah.
But it is some type of backpack propulsion unit.
Yeah, it's more than their regular gear of just holding a rifle.
Right. And so so for the next several minutes of the show, we have this tension of what's going to happen to Plo Koon and his clones. And at one point they see another escape pod.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh shit, like our brothers are over there. Let's see if we can help them, or maybe they can help us. So Plo uses the Force to like turn this escape pod around, and there's just 2 dead clones like hanging out.
Yeah. Like the glass has been pulled out or something like that, right? And then they're like, one is just literally hanging outside, like half out the window of
just hanging
the pod, right?
Yep.
So
we've got that, and then we're intercut with Anakin and Ahsoka, and turns out that Anakin was not being 100% truthful with what was going on, and although he agreed with the Big Four, like, okay, we'll just clear out and do the shit that we're supposed to do and listen to orders. He basically told Yularen, like, yo, follow that stuff. I've got something I got to do real quick, like, and he goes over there anyway.
Yeah.
He does talk to Obi-Wan along the way, right?
Yularen calls into the Obi-Wan calls into the ship. Yularen picks up and gives him the status update, and Obi-Wan is like, where's Anakin?
Right.
And Yularen is like, oh, he's not here right now. Would you like to leave a message? And Obi-Wan is like, great, he's gone off again.
Right. So this is when the Twilight, which is the name of the Anakin and Ahsoka's ship, Twilight, like those other really good movies that I didn't see.
I never saw them myself either. Yep.
I will watch Saw. I watched all 3 Human Centipede movies.
All three?
All three of them. Not Twilight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the Twilight is that rusty bucket of bolts that they got from the Clone Wars movie when they were on Teth. They stole it from some dead spider monks. When Ahsoka murdered that fucking droid, cutting his head off. So they show up, and Ahsoka is like looking at the computer or something. She's like dicking around doing something. Yeah. And makes a couple of comments, and Anakin basically has to say, "Yo, girl, like, look out the window."
Yeah.
And she does, and she's like, "Oh, shit, we're not where we're supposed to be." And he was like, "Yeah, well, I mean, we're going there. Everybody else is already headed there, but I figured we'd just, like, stop by on the way." And so then they've got this kind of back and forth lecture going on where she's like, "You told me that I shouldn't say anything." And he's like, "You're right. You shouldn't say anything. You should just fucking nod your head and do what you want to do anyway."
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
We know this is right. This is what needs to be done. Sometimes, the council can't see the big picture, blah, 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 blah. So they're there to save Plo. And at this point, they're talking, and this is where she brings up her backstory with Plo, right?
Yes. Yeah, like there's one cut back to the other pod or something like that.
Okay.
So, because I'm just bringing it up because it's my notes. It's the Separatists cut open pod 1977. Okay. Which is a not so hidden reference to the original release date of Star Wars. But it was there. They kind of make these, because it was this one and what was Clone Cadets made like very obvious.
Yep, because Clone Cadets pulled the THX 1138 card.
Yeah, which like I barely would reference it as an Easter egg because it's just there. Like there's there's no missing that. Yeah. So there's that, and then we cut back to the ship, to the Twilight, where Ahsoka brings up how like Plo found me and brought me to the Jedi Temple.
So Jedi are supposed to be like super young when they're picked up as younglings and brought to the Jedi Temple, right?
Something like that, because like they're not supposed to have attachments. Yeah.
This sounds like an attachment. Ahsoka's got some attachment to Plo.
To Plo, yeah.
And so is it? Does she remember this happening? Like, does she have memories of Plo saving her from regular society and taking her to special privilege religion, Jedi Temple?
Based on how she's saying it, it could go either way. Like it's still vague enough because she doesn't really mention her previous home. She just says that Plo found her and took her to the Jedi Temple. Right. Whether or not that's something she has been told later on.
Right.
Or if she vividly remembers that, like she doesn't bring up her parents per se. Because Anakin's like the one that has the attachment to his mother. Right. But Ahsoka never really brings up that sort of thing that I recall.
Yeah, I just thought it was odd that like they make a point. This is a thing. That's why Ahsoka is so worried about going to help Plo, because he's the one that brought her to the Jedi Temple. So ostensibly without Plo, Ahsoka would not be a Padawan right now.
Yeah,
right?
She'd still be a street rat somewhere. Like,
right, so
whatever her life story was before that she doesn't get into, yeah.
Right, this whole Jedi adventure for her wouldn't be possible. So I see it as like two ways. Like, she has memories of before being picked up and taken to the Jedi Temple, and that life was not so good, and Plo essentially saved her for a better life with the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Or Plo is just a fucking asshole and is always like, hey, remember, Ahsoka, like, I found you and brought you to the Jedi Temple. Like, if it weren't for me, and fill in the blank, whatever, you know? So, to me, it's one of those two things. Whether or not that's right, I don't know.
Yeah. There's not enough details given here for sure. You know, it's just mentioned that they have the connection, and that's why like Ahsoka's been on this weird tangent of just being oddly pushy and pissy to some degree. Like,
yeah,
right.
And extra complaining about it, even though she's getting her way. So then we cut back to Plo and the clones, and Plo talks to them for a little bit, and then he's like, all right, dudes, put your helmets on. Like, I'm going to go out there and fight these droids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he says he can withstand the pressure for a short amount of time.
So this is an expansion on that 1 minute that humans can survive in
space.
In space.
Yeah, in open space, yeah.
Right. So instead of pressure, I think he meant vacuum.
Yeah.
And of course it's one of those Star Wars things, so honestly, I didn't even look up like what alien species Plo is.
Yeah, but it's weird because like he has like this face thing, because I don't know anything beyond whatever we see in this episode either, you know.
So I've looked into Plo before, and the he's got like a respirator and then like a mask that like goes up over his eyes, right? And
yeah. Well, it doesn't go. It goes like up to his like the bridge of his nose, and then he has something else on his eyes or something like that.
Right, he's got like goggles or sun, like when you get in a tanning bed, which I have never done.
Yeah.
They give you those things
Just
that I've only seen in movies.
The eyelet things.
He's got like those on.
Yes, essentially, yeah.
Something like that. And I've read into this before, but it's been a long time, and apparently it's something to the effect of the mask is like a rebreather, so he doesn't breathe oxygen like humans breathe oxygen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it feeds whatever type of gas he needs to survive. So I think that this helps him be out in outer space. And then there's something with his vision or like his ocular nerve that he needs these other things to put on his face because the planet that he's from works differently.
Yeah. Okay. So
and he looks really ugly and gross. I did not look up what alien species he was, but I did look up Plo Koon without the mask on, and I guess in some comics he was drawn without the shit on his face.
Interesting.
He's all lumpy and gross looking.
Yeah, so
he
opts out because the hunter thingy is coming for their pod at this point. It found them.
Correct.
So he knows it's coming. It's coming to them, and the hunter thingy gets its claws sinking into their pod.
Correct.
And it's doing what it can to crush it. You know, like it's like crushing a can essentially.
Correct.
And what I found interesting, so like the droids are on the outside of it shooting at Plo and the pod while it's trying to crush it. Plo is like deflecting the lasers off of it with his lightsaber, and he's like fully exerting himself. The couple of clones that are outside the ship are also shooting back. Yeah,
so there's 3 clones that they were clone troopers, right? Yeah. So they were able to get out of, or is it just 2 of them?
I don't recall exactly how many, but there's at least a couple.
There's either 2 or 3 that are able to get out with him. The other person that's in the escape pod is an officer, so he doesn't have armor, so he doesn't have a helmet that he can put on. Yeah. So he's just stuck in there hoping that these other dudes can fucking help him out, because otherwise they're just gonna crack that thing open like an egg, and he's a cooked yolk at that point.
So I don't know if I missed it, but I feel like it just cut away and they were outside the ship, or outside the pod.
You didn't miss anything.
So how did they open the pod without killing the other dude?
Convenience.
Okay, that's all. That's all I needed.
Honestly, it couldn't. They did not show how they got from inside the pod to outside the pod.
Yeah. But there's no way to open that pod without.
Maybe so. Plo Koon. Here's what happened. Plo Koon like created a force bubble.
Yeah.
To hold the atmosphere inside. Then they opened the door, which in the past when I've seen, like whenever you see an escape pod, except for like Yoda's escape pod in Revenge of the Sith, that one's a little different. Like the whole front thing where the fucking window is like comes off, like that's the door.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I always thought it was still,
because that's how like C-3PO and R2 get out in A New Hope.
out the front side.
I think so.
Well, because like I'm picturing. Well, because like they always enter from the back, and then the door slides down. Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, it's again, it's one of those weird things where you
like,
in A New Hope you see the pod like it's not spiraling. It's like wobbling
off, off axis
in some weird off-axis spin wobble.
Yeah.
Right. And C-3PO and R2 are like sitting in some chairs.
Yeah.
Which R2 sitting in a chair or standing next to a chair or whatever, looking out a window.
Mm-hmm.
And
back
they can
at the Tantive. Yeah.
Right. Back at the Tantive and the Star Destroyer. And you can see it just spinning in their viewport.
Yeah.
And then I think it shows it again, and this viewport is on like the side.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on where you're at, the angle changes of which direction this thing should be spinning. And it looks like they're looking out the bottom of it, but it's not. It's on the side, and there should be a floor there.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's a floor according, like, where the...
Because, like, in, like, Last Jedi, like, where's Finn walking into, right?
Right.
Like, when Rose buzzes him with the freaking electric screwdriver thingy.
Right. So, I feel like the escape pods that we've seen, because we've seen a fucking lot of them in the past few episodes, the escape pods of the Clone Wars are kind of laid out in some sort of logical fashion, where you do kind of enter from the rear. You would essentially crawl through a little hole. I don't know what they call these, like on a... Because, like, doors on a submarine, like, inside, they're, like, small, right? They're not floor to ceiling.
Yeah.
So you would go...
They're still longer, though, right?
Yeah, they're like taller than they are wide, but they're not floor to ceiling.
Yeah, they're not little portholes or anything like that.
Right. Like, if you cut a hole in your door so that only, like, the middle hinge opened...
Yeah.
But you could keep, like, the rest of the door closed. Like, haha, my door's locked, but I can open, like, this little thing and crawl through the middle of my door.
Yeah. Like, you still have to bend over, but you don't have to, like...
You have to bend over, and you have to, like, step over at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you go through this, and I guess that around you, you're, like, crawling through the propulsion system. Like, the propulsion system is on the rear of it,
on
around
the side,
you. And you're crawling through the center of it. And then you get in, and the bottom is, I guess, rounded still, or maybe flat, I don't know. And then there's, like, some seats and stuff, and there's some windows. And the entire front of the thing is a window.
Yeah.
And so I guess they just go back out that door. So Plo Koon, like, creates some force atmosphere fucking bubble. And they're able to open the door because there's no airlock. There's not, like, two sections here. They're able to open the door,
the one spot,
and crawl out and go outside and then close the door. And then the other clone, which is Wolf, Commander Wolf. So there is only 3 clones. It's Wolf, Sinker, and Boost.
Mm-hmm.
And so Boost and Sinker are troopers. Wolf is a commander. Nope, that's not right. There's 3 troopers. Because Wolf has like all kinds of cool painting on his armor.
Mm-hmm.
So the 4th dude is just the officer. He's stuck inside, can't do shit. The other 3 go outside with Plo. That's how they do it. Is force atmosphere bubble.
Just holding it, and then
just holding it in.
Plo removes himself out, and then they shut it back and tighten
the wheel.
Yeah. That's it. That's what we got. So
because when you're in 0G in space, if you go to turn something, you have momentum.
Yeah.
And you can do that. Except for you can't.
Just brace yourself against the nothingness of space. Yeah.
Right. I mean, physics don't really apply to this episode in general because the clones are quote unquote standing like on top of this thing.
Yeah, they kind of like float back to it if anything happens, right? Like
as if it has some sort of gravity, right?
Yes.
But anytime that you had some type of projectile weapon, I mean, I would assume that it would work the same with an energy weapon. Mm-hmm. You're in 0Gs with like no friction and you're shooting something, like you're both going to move in opposite directions. You would go
backwards as well.
You would go backwards, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that's not what happens.
No.
But what does happen is we have a really, really, really good example of how nobody can, like, blasters are fucking pointless in this war.
Yeah, yeah.
Because there are 3 clone troopers, one of which is a commander, so he should have above average skill, maybe. Yep. I don't know. And we got 5-ish battle droids.
Yeah.
And something these guys are less than fucking 10 meters apart.
Yeah.
And there are hundreds of blaster bolts that go off in the next fucking 2 minutes of this show.
Yeah.
And we lose 1 or 2. We lose 4 droids total.
Yeah.
In this entire episode.
Yeah, because this also brings up another note I made, is that with all this blaster fire kind of spreading outward from this area,
right?
While this is happening, Anakin and Ahsoka are like circling around trying to find them.
So you think that they would see like flashes of light or something, or like fucking blaster fire, or maybe pick up like a stray blast or something?
Well, like if you're driving in the woods and you know there's a gun battle going on, wouldn't you like hear it or anything, you know?
Well, in space you're not supposed to be able to hear anything, but in Star Wars you can hear all this blaster fire and shit.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe.
So, or at least, yeah, but to your point, yeah, see any, like, hey, like, where are these laser blasts coming from, right? Like,
there should be some evidence that there's some sort of something going on somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere.
But they, you know what they do? They turn on their illuminator, which is a fucking headlight.
Yeah. It's just spot check the debris, essentially.
Right. So they turn their flashlight on and they just start waving it around in the woods.
Yeah, because the tension that's being built at this moment is that Ahsoka and Anakin aren't sure if Plo's still alive or not. Meanwhile, it cuts back to Plo, and the thing is crushing their pod, and the one dude on the inside is like, get your shit together, or else I'm gonna fucking die.
Yeah, so these mandible things that are off the front of this are like 4 table legs, as I described them earlier, are literally crushing the front of this pod.
Yeah.
And
they
what
show
that's
it
gonna
like
do,
they show
it's
it
like digging
breaking
into it.
Yeah,
right.
Because they show like some hissing and some steam comes out of it of some sort, or just some not steam, but they just visualize air escaping. Right.
Some sort of gas, perhaps.
Something, yeah. So they're building this tension up. Meanwhile, nobody's being able to hit anything. Plo Koon is just deflecting things, but not back at any of the droids, which is weird as well.
I feel like any droid that... I mean, we lose 4 droids in this episode, and I feel like it's 50-50. Like, I feel like Plo Koon takes out 2 of them, and finally the other 3 fucking troopers that are there take out 2.
Yeah.
Maybe. So R2 is actually listening on some radio frequencies, and the clone officer that's inside is trying to like radio out for help. He's sending out his SOS, right?
Yep.
And R2 picks it up. So I think that Anakin and Ahsoka are like, Anakin's about to give up. Like, hey, we fucking put enough time in this. We're gonna get bitched at anyway. Like, we're supposed to be doing something else. Like, we tried. Yeah. Sorry, Ahsoka, not gonna work out.
Because she's like, well, story thread C is that like Yoda, Palpatine have been told by Obi-Wan that they went rogue to some degree.
Right.
And Yoda is like twice the trouble they have become. And Palpatine then calls Anakin in the middle of all of this and tells him to go back and join up with Yularen again.
Right.
So yeah, they're about to turn back. And that's when Ahsoka reaches out with the Force.
And finds Plo, right?
Yeah. And yeah, so that's happening. So she kind of leads him basically directly to where he is. Saves the day. But then so Plo and the clones get onto the Twilight. Yes.
Yeah, I am breezing through my notes here. I saw a couple things that I missed and I would like to discuss.
Yeah, hit it up.
One of which is while these floaty droids are going in for the kill, there's one droid that is kind of hanging onto the ship, this crusher ship thing, as if he's like driving it or something, and he's humming to himself. Yeah, and he's totally humming the Imperial Death March to himself, which I thought was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And then at one point, Plo takes one of the clones and like yanks him. It's one of the guys that he's working with, and nobody's blaster fire is fucking doing anything. So he like force grabs this clone and like force yo-yos him like all the way across over closer to where the droids are, so he can like shoot a droid and then like pulls him back. We've got a little bit of other stuff going on. So yeah, what happens is that Anakin and Ahsoka, when R2 hears this radio thing, Ahsoka finds Plo with the Force.
Yeah.
They fly over there. They get there just in the nick of time before they crack this thing open, and fucking clone officer inside dies, and they get overtaken by these 5 battle droids, because a Jedi is worth 1,000 battle droids unless they're in space. Yeah. And Anakin just like turns around, opens the trunk, fires out a fucking tow cable, and they just pull it inside.
Yep. Whole thing comes in, and they're all like, "Thank you, awesome." But they're not out of the woods yet, because the Malevolence is still floating around out there.
Correct. Side note. So the trunk opens, right, and it's like a small landing bay, we'll call it. I think those are called docking bays. I don't know. Whatever. There's a blue shield on the Twilight, and the shit fucking works the way that it's supposed to. Yes. Where it like It pulls in the escape pod. This tow cable pulls in the escape pod. And when the escape pod gets through the blue shield, then it like drops to the floor. And it keeps the fucking atmosphere in. It keeps the bad shit out. Like, on the outside of the blue thing is space. On the inside of the blue thing is atmosphere and gravity and shit.
Yep.
So I know I've been bitching about shields a lot, and this is the way that they should work. So that's my standard moving forward, is this is what we should see when we see some fucking shields. Like, this is the way that things work.
Yes, yeah. Because even then when it drops, like, there's still, like, just a tail end of the propulsion bits of the escape pod that's still outside, which I thought was fun. Because it doesn't matter, because the rest of it's already inside. We're all good.
Right.
So whatever needs to hang out is fine, just as long as the rest can come in and do their thing. So
right. So then they close up the trunk.
Mm-hmm.
And we're fully inside the Twilight at this point. Did you notice that the Twilight has an actual doctor now, like a doctor droid, medical droid? I guess it's a medical droid, not a doctor droid.
Yeah, the medical droid is walking around, shows up, and then again, like whenever, what was it in the movie where we last met a medical droid? Where
but it wasn't a. You're talking about the hologram one.
Yes, that's true. That was the hologram one. Because this one kind of gives similar advice where they're like, well, he needs, like, actual medical assistance. I can only do so much.
Right.
Like,
he said he needs a medical frigate.
Yeah. Like, okay, well, we got that part, but how about... Excuse me. How about you just take care of what you can do, because these guys have been out in space,
right? Which
a bunch of fucking droids. Like, just do your fucking job. Like,
which would be give them that one pill, that was in the medical supply box or whatever. So there's an actual physical med droid that does about as much as the hologram med droid did. So at this point, Plo reveals what the weapon is, because although we've seen it, and we've seen it in operation, and Plo knows what it is, the Big Four and everybody else don't. Yeah. Anakin doesn't know. Like, so they would should they have come across this scene on accident, they're just gonna all you see is debris.
Yeah.
So Plo's got the breakdown of what's going on. They are kind of going through their escape, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, all right, we got to get the fuck out of here. And then we see some big old ship coming in.
Yeah.
And it is the Malevolence, right?
Yep.
So, Plo's idea is to just shut everything down.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
just so they're floating out there. No,
they're dead in the water.
Any signals, yeah.
Floating out there.
They can't be traced. Yeah.
Yep. Nothing.
They turn off R2.
Right. At the last second, they're like, "Oh fuck, R2!" Like, turn them off. So they turn off R2, and they're just waiting and they're chilling, and they're like, "Sweet, cool. We're gonna get away with this. This is working." And in Clone Wars fashion, we got a little snafu, and that snafu is this fucking medical droid.
Yep.
Just comes waltzing into the bridge like, "Oh, I did what I can. Like, I don't know what else to do." And they're like, "Fuck the fucking med droid."
Yeah. Well, the med droid is even more ridiculous because, like, the med droid and the clones all can tell that all the systems are off.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, "Oh, maybe we're trying to hide from something," but they let the medical droid wander away.
Right.
Like, that part was so fucking dumb to me. That the clones kind of suspect what's happening, but they're like, the medical droid is like, "Well, let me go onto the bridge and verify."
Right.
Like, motherfuckers, you know everything else is off. Turn off the goddamn medical droid. Like,
right.
What the fuck are you guys doing?
So Grievous is fucking bitching, and What did you catch why Grievous gets all pissed?
Well, because like, was it even in this episode? Why do I think it's in the next episode? But I'm thinking of something from the next episode, so I don't know about this one because I'm looking at my notes for the next episode. Because I know Grievous gets pissy in the next episode with Dooku as well.
Yeah, so Grievous gets all pissed because basically the Malevolence circles back around to pick up their little crusher destroyer,
the hunter
scout
thingy. Yeah.
Hunter. I think that's
they
what they
refer
call
to it. They call it the hunter at some point.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're totally right. In plural, hunters.
Yeah.
So they come back to collect all these hunters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And however many they sent out, say they sent out fucking 4 and 3 of them came back.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, well, what happened to the other one? So the hunter has been destroyed. So the droids are like, sweet, we don't have to do anything. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
But that's not the way it works because Grievous is like, no, if the fucking thing can't come back and it's destroyed and it's broken, like somebody did that.
Yeah.
So
like,
where are the people that
should be? Yeah.
Where are the people that did that? Like there's either the hunter survives because it did its job, or it didn't do its job and it got beat up, and therefore we need to find who beat it up.
Yeah, and because like that's right, because like Dooku says something to the effect that there should be no survivors. Nobody should know about this.
Right.
So I want you to deal with the survivors, and so Grievous logically
is just barking orders.
Yeah.
You do this, you do that, fucking scan that thing, fucking don't do that, blah, blah, blah.
Like, there aren't supposed to be survivors, but how did one of our things get destroyed? If one of our things got destroyed, then
that means there are survivors.
There are some fucking survivors. So back on the Twilight, they're floating around. The fucking medical droid comes up, and then back on the Malevolence, they pick that one medical droid up. They're like, oh, it's a faint signal, but there's something out there.
Right, so then they go to scan more in depth or whatever they're doing. They're going to try to locate this signal. At this point, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Plo all realize that like the med droid's on. That's a bad thing.
Speaking of real quick, too, back because I just noticed in my notes here, we were talking about how the physics in this episode make no sense. There's something else that happens too that when they're shutting down the ship before the medical droid even comes in.
Okay.
When Plo is like, oh, we got to shut down the ship because then they won't detect us. Did you notice that when they shut off the ship, the ship kind of spins a little bit and comes to a stop as if it were like a jet ski in the water?
Right.
And then just stops in place.
Right.
Instead of
I didn't catch
floating
that,
on.
Your description is something that I understand and I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's no friction in space to slow this shit down, to make something stop, to fucking, like, you don't have that. You just keep on fucking floating.
Yeah, and
it's not fire like off at 10 miles an hour and you turn everything off. You're going to keep moving at 10 miles an hour until you crash into something.
Yeah. So it's not like they hit the brakes and then turn things off. They're like, oh shit, we gotta turn things off, and they show like all 3 of them, Anakin, Ahsoka, and Plo, like hitting all random switches that don't make any sense. They're like switch, and then it comes to this glide. I'm like, what the fuck just happened there, guys? Like, anyways, so there was that little tangent, but that little piece definitely bothered me a lot because that one just kind of broke the physics of my brain a little bit there, like.
Yeah, the physics on this episode, they're bad.
Yeah.
I don't think they even tried too hard, because sometimes you see stuff in this animated series where you're like, okay, well, I can see, like where they're going. I mean, we had some giant fucking walkers like walk up the side of a cliff, right?
Yeah.
But at least they had like little grabby things on their feet.
Yeah,
it wasn't just like
there. Yeah.
Right. It wasn't just, okay, we're rotating gravity 90 degrees just because we need to go up now instead of forward. I mean, there was at least some sort of semblance
something
of
happening.
a reasoning. I won't even call it an explanation. Just, this is the reason why we can get by doing this.
The thing. Yeah.
Right.
I agree. So, but this was the one where it's just like, nope, there's nothing to this. Like, like I saw it happen, I took the note, moved on, but it was still just like, come on now.
Right, so they are caught by Grievous, or they're in the process of being caught. Like, Grievous knows they're there.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily know who it is or what it is, but he knows something's there.
Yeah.
So they do exactly what you just said, and they frantically start hitting buttons and fucking powering shit up, and like, we got to get the fuck out of here, and GTFO and all that jazz, and
Anakin
whatnot.
does a special flying, and they're going through the debris field.
He tries spinning.
Yeah, all the tricks, all the good tricks. So they're flying away from the Malevolence. It's in their rear mirror. And then the thing, Malevolence, charges up the ion cannon and blasts out one in their general direction.
Right, and so when this happens, we get a remake of the shot that was in A New Hope. It was also in Rogue One.
Yep.
Of the Death Star. So on the Death Star, it's a couple of officers standing on a platform with some computer screens and dials and switches and shit, and a long tube that is suddenly illuminated by a big green laser beam firing out past them, and they kind of do that duck to the side and cover your face thing.
Yeah.
To shield themselves from said giant planet destroying laser beam.
Mm-hmm.
So in this episode, we've got the same setup, same angle, same tube, same platform, different colors, two droids instead of two officers, and a purple blast instead of a green blast.
Yep.
Works well.
Yeah.
No complaints on my part.
Nope. That was fine.
These are those little callbacks that are welcome, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, and they're it's a good callback that doesn't try to show off too much.
Right.
Like it's a logical placement for it.
Right.
So
it's not shoehorned in. It's not we don't have an entire episode built around like this one idea of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we recreated like this shot, but instead it's like droids and we'll just change the color of the fucking laser blast. Like no, it
serves the rest of the story that's led up to that point. So
right. And for maybe if you're a parent and you're watching this with your kids, like you'll see that. And if you know anything about Star Wars, you might smile a little bit. Like, hey, that's cool. Maybe it'll pull you in a little bit. You can spend some time with your kid. Mm-hmm. Or you can be like me and you just want to watch the shows anyway.
Yeah.
And then you see that and that makes you happy as well. Yeah.
So anyways,
this
that
pulse
blasts out.
Yep. Pulse fires out.
Mm-hmm.
It is bearing down on the Twilight.
Yep. Which is still ducking and weaving around all the debris of the dead ships around it.
And I guess what happens is they get clear of the debris.
Mm-hmm. R2-D2 clears the path.
R2-D2 clears the path, and they got their hyperspace coordinates in, and right before they're hit by this purple blasty blast, engage the hyperdrive and take off and go. Yep. So they avoided catastrophe just barely.
Yeah.
Question, why did they have to fly out of the debris field before going to hyperspace?
So that they don't hit any of the debris as they traverse forward at hyperspeed.
But how do you know that there is no space debris or anything in your path every time you jump to hyperspace?
That is a good question. Because again, I don't know if it was this episode or the next one. They're melding in my head, but there's one point. Oh, it is the next one. So I don't know if I want to discuss it per se, but they just looking forward.
We can save it. We can.
Okay. So
we'll save it. We'll bring it up next week.
Yeah, we'll bring it up next time. But there's something that's mentioned that I never really thought of before, but I agree with you that they always, because Han kind of brings it up in A New Hope, So the reason they can't jump to hyperspace again is because they need to do all the coordinates. They don't want to go through like a star, something like that, right?
Right. And like Dustin Crop's boy, if you bounce too close to a nebula or people are going to kill me that I'm not getting this fucking quote right.
It's going to end your trip real quick,
Right.
So anyways, so that's all I got on that for now, right? So, but moving on, they get out of there. Again, the one question I had, and again, having prepared with next week's episode, regarding on this episode, why is everybody stuck flying away from the blast, the direction the blast is headed, instead of perpendicular to it?
Because they're dumb.
Yeah, that's
like you
it's
can
a big
fly.
disc coming towards you. Just take a step to the left or right.
You got X, Y, and Z axes here, right?
Yeah,
axes, whatever it is, whatever the proper term is. But instead of going up, down, left, right, they just continue going forward.
Yeah. So that was the bit that also really bothered me. So,
and I think maybe it's because this is supposed to be like an unseen technology. So when you're first faced with this stuff, you don't know the ins and outs of it and the ups and downs, and you got to figure out, you got to see it to see how it works to be able to figure out how you can get around its attack, right?
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, I tutored at this local grade school. And it was like me and like two other kids from my high school that would go there like 2 or 3 times a week or whatever. And I tutored some kid in 4th grade in math, right?
Yeah.
But during the time that we were there, all these kids also had lunch and recess. So when we started, like, kids play kickball, right?
Yeah.
That's like generic. This is what we're going to do on the playground is play kickball.
Yeah.
These kids were fucking terrible at kickball. Like, it was just a clusterfuck of fucking everybody trying to all be at the front of the line at the same time. So we, we're some high school dudes and we take over and like we show these kids how to properly play kickball, and part of it's like giving the kicker enough room to fucking move and not mobbing the pitcher, and like spread out. Not everybody can catch the ball at the same time. Like if somebody's got it, they got it, right? Yeah. And one of the other things was, if you watch little kids in a game of tag or something like that, and in this instance, it's like tag with a ball, right? Once you kick it, you can throw a ball at the person. If they're in between bases, they're out. So at the beginning of our mentorship with these kids, including recess, somebody would throw the ball, and if kid A was running from second base to third base and the ball's behind them, they're like full-fledged running, looking over their shoulder as this ball is like slowly bouncing behind them, instead of just like take one step to the side, let it pass you, and then fucking walk to third base and then walk on home, because kids throw the ball as hard as they fucking can, no matter how far away from somebody they are, right?
Yeah.
So instead of just stepping out of the way and letting it go past you, they would try to outrun a fucking direct throw from one of their schoolmates. Yeah. Or jump over the fucking ball or whatever. Those are skills that they didn't know that were needed to be successful
Yeah.
in a game of playground kickball.
Yeah.
So
It was
that
just
is
more
why
of the fear of the ball coming at you, taking
right.
over.
Well, I think in their eyes it's like logical. Like somebody's throwing a ball at you, you run away from it. But if you're running away and somebody throws something at you, you're both moving in the same direction.
Yeah.
And logically, you think I continue running away and I try to run away faster.
All right.
Sometimes that is successful and sometimes it's not. And it's not until you encounter that situation enough times and somebody fucking trips and falls over and the ball goes over them, or somebody steps out of the way or whatever, then your brain goes, fuck, this is a good defense for either A, somebody throwing a ball at me playing kickball, or B, General Grievous shooting some fucking purple blasty blast disc ion
coming our way
thing at me.
Yeah.
So maybe potentially this encounter will influence somebody in the future of the Clone Wars, and we'll see a better defense than
going the exact direction that this disc, this very defined disc, is coming at you. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
That's a good explanation. I accept that for this one. So
okay.
Yeah.
And that is a true kickball story as well. So
that's what else happens in this episode. That's about it.
I mean, it's kind of a wrap up of like Grievous is pissed because the Republic's going to know about their secret weapon. Dooku leaves the bridge to discuss Grievous's failure with Sidious because Dooku just blames Grievous.
Plo and Ahsoka have a nice little chat as they get back to the rest of the council, or they get back to the rest of the fleet with you, Lauren, right?
Yeah, I've just got a note that says the Twilight is on some Jedi cruiser. And then there's like a whole bunch of thank yous going back and forth. Commander Wolf thanks everybody. Anakin thanks Ahsoka. Plo thanks the council. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's like the music is starting to swell. It's
right, and then cut to credits. So that's the end. They got away. They got back to a good guy Star Destroyer, and that is the end of Rising Malevolence. So we met 3 new clones here that were named. That's Boost, Wolf, and Sinker. The body count on this was pretty low. I had 2 clones down and 4 droids, and I honestly think that the 2 clones were from the newsreel, which I'm second guessing counting those because it's kind of like, when did those happen?
Yeah,
I don't want to double count shit, but I started that way, so we're
moving on with it.
We're just going with it, and we're just gonna keep, so be it. Not too worried about it. So overall, your opinion, thumbs up, thumbs down? How do we fare here?
I'm gonna just start by saying I did not like this episode.
Okay.
The pacing of it is all over the place. For 24 minutes, the episode felt like the longest yet of the actual proper show. Like movie was in its own level of oddness to me, but when it comes to the proper television series here, they're trying to build intention, but then it gets cut by Anakin and Ahsoka talking about their thing. It comes back to the dudes in the pod. Then it's also the episode with, as we've already discussed, with the most logical leaps yet. Right.
Yeah, it lacks some of the fluidity that previous episodes held.
Yeah.
And even though technically it is 2 minutes longer, so technically it is the longest episode of the show that we have seen, I don't know that those 2 minutes are an excuse enough for the things that you're pointing out.
Yeah, like if anything, it needed to be shorter. Like,
I will say I gave this one a thumbs up. I enjoyed it. I like it. I like the malevolence. I like the hidden weapon, secret weapon. We got to go figure it out. I did enjoy the whole Anakin is teaching Ahsoka a lesson of, sometimes you got to do what is right.
Yeah.
Not what you can follow orders in more than one way. And he sets everything up like, okay, we're supposed to do this, cool. You do this, you do that, you do that, you do this, you do that. We're going to go take care of something. We'll meet you there.
Yeah.
So he is, and it's a technicality, like he did what he was supposed to do. He just took a little detour.
See, yeah, I like all those story beats. I like the idea of the malevolence. It's just the way this episode played out was just so annoying to me, right?
Right.
Like, all the pieces are there. Like, Plo Koon is a good character. Like, none of the characters really annoyed me, right? It's the storytelling on this one that just really let me down, right?
Fell short for you.
Yeah, not even fell short, just fell apart, right? Like, it just got to me where I was just like, okay, I got it. Like, it's just, let's move on. Like, this, it's so much weird, almost like melodrama sort of things, right?
Right.
So, yeah. Just, yeah, like I said, this hasn't been like my least favorite or anything, but it just didn't come together for me. So
didn't break that 50 mark on you.
No. It's, yeah.
I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
Do you have any brief description of what's coming up next week?
So yeah, next week is the following episode. So we do have some normal order coming here. So if this is episode 2 of season 1, the next one is actually episode 3, called Shadow of Malevolence. So
yeah, right. We've got kind of a little 3-parter as far as episodes go. So technically the movie was supposed to be like 4 parts. Really, I mean, if you want to hear our opinions on that, you can go back to episodes 3, 4, 5, and 6 of These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. But we got Rising Malevolence today. Next week is Shadow of Malevolence, and then the following week is Destroy Malevolence. So maybe some spoilers in those titles there. Not really sure. You'll have to come back and find out. So we're continuing the story of the Malevolence next week. So we'll see what happens next, and if Plo Koon's going to come along on the journey and whatnot. So we'll see.
Cool. Yeah. So anyways, if you want to reach out to us, you can with Not the Nerds podcast at gmail.com.
Correct.
And then Facebook is at Not the Nerds Podcast.
Correct. And then Twitter and Instagram are both just at Not the Nerds.
Yep. So that's where you can reach out to us if you have anything you want to say. Kevin's in charge of the Twitter. He's been pretty active on that. So yeah. All right. Anything else? Anything else before we get out of here?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for listening. I'd like to thank Lindsay for putting together our intro-outro music. You can contact her through email at strangefantasymusic@gmail.com. And then thanks to Kevin over on Twitter at They Call Me K-Dub. He's the one that put together our hero pose. Yep, our podcast artwork. So
yeah,
thanks to them. Thanks to you guys, Lorenzo. Thanks to you. And
nice talking.
Yep, we'll talk to you guys next week.
All right, see ya.